Death row inmates' last words shocked everyone. Angola Prison documentary. On April 5, 1984, just after 12 a.m., guards at Louisiana State Penitentiary unlocked the final door on death row. The man inside had spent nearly 8 years waiting for this walk. He was Patrick Sonnier, convicted of a violent crime that had torn a family apart and scarred an entire community. Outside the execution chamber, reporters were already preparing their headlines. Inside, witnesses expected the usual final words: an apology, a denial, or silence. Instead, Sonnier said something no one in that room was prepared for. Something so calm, so deliberate, so unsettling. One guard would later say it was the only execution he never forgot. One witness described it as harder to hear than the sentence itself. And to this day, people still argue over what those final words really meant. Were they remorse? A confession? Or something far more complicated? This video discusses a real criminal case and contains mature themes. It's intended for educational purposes and to examine the criminal justice system. Viewer discretion is advised. Because to understand how it came to this, to understand why those last words shocked everyone, we need to go back. Patrick Sonnier did not grow up imagining death row. According to court records and interviews later cited during appeals, he came from a working-class Louisiana background. Nothing about his early life suggested national headlines or execution witnesses. He wasn't famous. He wasn't powerful. He wasn't wealthy. And that's part of why this case still unsettles people. In 1977, Louisiana was a state wrestling with rising violent crime and hardline sentencing. Public trust in the justice system was thin, and patience was thinner. When serious crimes happened, communities wanted swift accountability. Angola Prison, officially the Louisiana State Penitentiary, was already infamous. Built on the site of a former slave plantation, it was surrounded by miles of farmland and razor wire. Inmates called it the Alcatraz of the South. Once you entered Angola on a life sentence, you didn't leave. On death row, that reality was absolute. Looking back, there were warning signs in Sonnier's life: unstable work, association with known offenders, impulsive behavior, but none of them predicted what would happen next. That changed on October 26, 1977. That's when everything unraveled. On that night, according to trial testimony, Patrick Sonnier and his brother entered a small convenience store in Lake Charles, Louisiana. The store was closing. 2 teenagers were inside, brothers who were working late to help their family. What happened next unfolded in minutes, but the consequences would last decades. Witnesses later described confusion first, then fear. The situation escalated quickly. A robbery attempt turned violent. According to court documents, one of the brothers was fatally shot. The other survived, injured, traumatized, and forced to live with what he'd seen. From Sonnier's perspective, prosecutors argued, the crime was impulsive but intentional. From the defense's perspective, it was chaotic, reckless, and spiraled out of control. But by the time authorities arrived, it was already too late. The evidence they uncovered would shock even veteran detectives. Shell casings, eyewitness testimony, a survivor who could identify the attackers. Within days, Sonnier was arrested. And from that moment forward, the outcome seemed inevitable. But what happened next would change everything. The investigation moved fast, by design. In the late 1970s, Louisiana prosecutors were under enormous pressure to appear tough on violent crime. According to court records, the case against Sonnier relied heavily on survivor testimony and physical evidence collected at the scene. Police said the facts were clear. The defense argued the investigation was rushed. There were conflicting accounts about who fired the fatal shot. There were questions about intent. There were debates about proportional responsibility. But in the courtroom, those complexities didn't slow things down. During the trial, jurors heard emotional testimony from the surviving brother. His voice reportedly shook as he described the moment his sibling fell. The prosecution painted Sonnier as fully responsible. The defense emphasized his brother's role and argued against the death penalty. It didn't matter. In 1978, Patrick Sonnier was convicted and sentenced to death. Public reaction was immediate and divided. Some believed justice had been served. Others questioned whether the death penalty solved anything at all. Appeals followed, automatic, lengthy, and ultimately unsuccessful. By the early 1980s, Sonnier was housed on death row at Angola, joining hundreds of men who would never leave alive. But the story didn't end there, because prison changed him. Death row at Angola is not like prison life on television. Inmates are confined to small cells for most of the day. Movement is restricted. Silence is constant. Former guards have described it as waiting inside time. According to interviews cited in later reporting, Sonnier underwent a noticeable psychological shift during his incarceration. He became quieter, more reflective. He read extensively. He wrote letters, many of them never answered. He attended religious services regularly. Some inmates saw this as genuine remorse. Others believed it was survival. Because on death row, survival isn't about escape. It's about endurance. Over the years, Sonnier reportedly accepted responsibility for the crime. He stopped filing last-minute appeals. He stopped claiming innocence. And that decision, choosing not to fight the execution, would haunt everyone involved. Guards noticed it. Chaplains noticed it. Even prosecutors took note. After nearly 8 years, the execution date was set. April 5, 1984. After that time frame, something unexpected happened. In the days leading up to his execution, Sonnier requested meetings, not with lawyers, but with spiritual advisors and prison officials. According to witnesses, he made it clear he would not resist. On the night of the execution, he was calm. Too calm. As he was strapped into the electric chair, witnesses leaned forward, expecting fear or anger. Instead, Sonnier spoke directly to the victim's family. He apologized. Not once. Not vaguely. But specifically. Then he said the words that stunned the room. He told them he deserved the punishment. No excuses. No blame shifting. No protest. One witness later said, "It felt like he was sentencing himself." To this day, no one agrees on what that moment meant. Was it remorse? Was it resignation? Was it something learned too late? Patrick Sonnier was pronounced dead minutes later. But the impact of his last words didn't end there. They were replayed in newsrooms, debated in law schools, cited by both death penalty advocates and opponents. And they still echo. This case reveals a truth many people don't want to face. The criminal justice system isn't just about guilt or innocence. It's about time, about change, about whether accountability has a deadline. Patrick Sonnier committed a violent crime that destroyed lives. That fact cannot be erased. But his final words force us to confront an uncomfortable question. If remorse comes too late, does it still matter? Some say justice was served the moment the sentence was carried out. Others believe the system failed by focusing on punishment over prevention. Angola Prison still stands. Death row still exists. And cases like this still divide us. The haunting detail is this. For many witnesses, the execution itself faded from memory. But the words did not. The question we're left with is simple and deeply unsettling. Is justice about ending a life? Or understanding what led there in the first place? I cover cases like this the media forgot, cases that expose system failures. Subscribe so you don't miss them. Do you think Patrick Sonnier's final words showed true remorse? Or were they just the end of the road? Which part of this case shocked you most? And was justice truly served? Let me know in the comments.